Electric motors and generators are so familiar you've stopped noticing how deeply strange they are. Think about what a motor does. You push electricity times and times current flowing through wires, and mechanical rotation comes times out. Energy transforms. Invisible electrical force becomes physical spinning motion. Now think about what a generator does. You push mechanical rotation times and times a turbine, an engine, a waterfall turning a shaft, and electricity comes times out. Physical spinning motion becomes invisible electrical force. One converts electricity into motion. The other converts motion into electricity. They are opposites. So Y times 2 they look absolutely identical. Same copper windings, same permanent magnets, same iron core, same rotating shaft. You cannot tell them apart by looking at them. This should bother you deeply. Because either the universe is playing an extraordinarily strange joke, or there's something happening here that your textbook completely failed to tell you. It's the second one. What Tesla discovered, what took him years of obsessive work in the 1880s to prove, was that a motor and a generator aren't two machines. They're one machine running in two directions. And that single insight reveals a symmetry so profound it changes how you see energy, time, and physical law itself. Let me show you. The standard explanation goes something like this. Motors and generators look the same because engineers are efficient. Why build two different housings when one works for both? They share parts because sharing parts is cheaper. It's a manufacturing decision. A practical coincidence. You might have heard that. It's not entirely wrong. But it's missing something so fundamental, it might as well be wrong. Because, here's what that explanation skips over entirely. It doesn't tell you times Y times the same physical structure can run in both directions. It doesn't explain why pushing electricity in produces motion, or why pushing motion in produces electricity. It just notes that both machines have coils and magnets and leaves you there. That's not an explanation, that's just a parts list. The real answer lives somewhere deeper. It lives in the relationship between electricity and magnetism itself, a relationship so strange, so perfectly symmetrical, that once you see it clearly, you realize these two machines were always destined to be identical. Not because of engineering, because of physics. Tesla didn't just build better machines. He saw the symmetry underneath the machines, and it changed everything. But to see what he saw, we need to start somewhere simple. Start with a wire. Start with a wire. Just a simple copper wire. The kind inside every motor, every generator, every power cable you've ever seen. Copper atoms arranged in a long line, electrons loosely held. Ready to move. Now bring a magnet close to it. Not touching. Just close. Move the magnet slowly past the wire and something happens that should seem, if you think about it carefully, completely impossible. Electrons move. You didn't connect a battery. You didn't apply voltage. You didn't do anything to the wire at all. You just waved a magnet nearby. An electric current appeared inside the metal. Stop and think about that for a second. A moving magnetic field reaches through empty space and pushes electrons inside a conductor. No contact, no connection, just proximity and motion. This is called electromagnetic induction. Michael Faraday discovered it in 1831. He wrapped two coils of wire around an iron ring, connected one coil to a battery, and watched a current appear in the second coil, the moment he switched the first one on. Not because the coils were connected, because the times-changing magnetic field times from the first coil reached through the iron and grabbed the electrons in the second. Faraday was so stunned he wrote it down immediately. Then he spent years figuring out what it meant. Here's what it means at its simplest. Changing magnetism creates electricity. That's the rule. Whenever a magnetic field changes, moves, grows, collapses, rotates. It pushes electrons. It forces current to flow. Every generator ever built runs on this single principle. A turbine spins a magnet past copper coils. The magnetic field keeps changing. Electrons keep getting pushed. Current keeps flowing. That's it. That's a generator. But now here's the question nobody asks immediately after learning this. If changing magnetism creates electricity, what does electricity create? If changing magnetism creates electricity, electricity creates magnetism. That's it. That's the answer. That's the symmetry Faraday stumbled onto, and James Clerk Maxwell turned into mathematics in 1865. Every wire carrying current is surrounded by a magnetic field. Not sometimes, not under special conditions, always, universally, without exception. Run current through a wire and a magnetic field. Looms around. Stop the current and the field collapses. Change the current and the field changes with it. This isn't a minor footnote in physics. This is one of the most profound symmetries in all of nature. Electricity makes magnetism. Magnetism makes electricity. They don't just coexist, they times create each other. Maxwell looked at Faraday's experimental results and wrote 4 equations that described this relationship completely. 4 equations that unified electricity and magnetism into a single force, electromagnetism. 1 force, 2 faces, each one capable of producing the other. Think about what that means. You don't have an electric phenomenon over here and a magnetic phenomenon over there. You have one thing expressing itself in 2 different ways, depending on how you look at it. Same thing. But wait. If electricity creates magnetism, and magnetism creates electricity, what happens when you put a current-carrying wire times inside times a magnetic field? Here's where it gets strange. You might expect the 2 magnetic fields, the one from the wire, the one from the external magnet, to just sit there, 2 fields occupying the same space, coexisting peacefully. They don't. They push against each other. They interact. And that interaction produces something that should seem, again, almost impossible. Force. Physical, mechanical, undeniable force. The wire moves. Not vibrates. Not flexes slightly. Moves. A current-carrying wire inside a magnetic field experiences a physical push. The direction of that push depends on the direction of the current, and the direction of the field. Change either one, and the push changes direction. This is called the Lorentz force, and it is the entire operating principle of every electric motor ever built. Here's the thing that should bother you about this. You started with electricity, electrons moving through copper, invisible, weightless, abstract, and you ended up with times mechanical motion, something physically moving through space. These feel like completely different categories of reality. One is invisible and electrical, the other is tangible and mechanical. But the magnetic field bridges them. It is the translator between the electrical world and the mechanical world. Now put this together with what we already know. Changing magnetism creates electricity, that's a generator. Current in a magnetic field creates motion, that's a motor. Both effects emerge from the same underlying relationship between electricity and magnetism. Both are just different expressions of the same symmetry. You already know where this is going. But we're not done. There's another layer. Because we still haven't asked the most important question. What is actually happening inside the rotating machine? What is the magnetic field times doing times at the microscopic level that makes all of this work? Inside every motor and every generator, there is a rotating magnetic field. Not a magnet spinning physically through space, though that can produce it. A field that rotates. That sweeps through the surrounding copper coils in a continuous cycle, always changing direction, always pointing somewhere new. Tesla saw this. In 1882, he was walking through a park in Budapest, reciting dirt from memory. When the solution arrived fully formed, he stopped walking. He grabbed his companion's arm. He drew the diagram in the dirt with a stick. A rotating magnetic field. If you arrange multiple coils around a central point, and feed them alternating current that cycles back and forth at a precise frequency, the magnetic fields from each coil combine into a single field that rotates smoothly in space. No mechanical spinning required. The rotation is in the field itself. This should break your brain slightly. You're creating rotation without anything physically rotating. The field sweeps around the coils like the hand of a clock, except the hand isn't made of matter. It's made of pure electromagnetic influence. And anything placed inside that rotating field, a copper bar, a squirrel cage rotor, any conductor gets grabbed by the field and dragged along with it. That's an AC induction motor. No brushes, no commutator, no physical connection between the spinning part and the stationary part. Just a rotating field pulling a rotor through empty space. Now here's what nobody tells you. Run that same machine backwards. Grab the rotor and spin it mechanically with a steam turbine, a waterfall, a wind blade. The rotor's motion drags the magnetic field. The rotating field sweeps past the stationary coils. The changing magnetic field pushes electrons through those coils. Current flows out. You just built a generator with the exact same machine. The rotating magnetic field is the heart of both devices. In a motor, electrical alternating current times creates times the rotating field, and the rotating field times creates times mechanical motion. In a generator, mechanical motion times creates times the rotating field, and the rotating field times creates times electrical alternating current. The field rotates either way. The machine doesn't care which direction energy flows through it. And that right there is the answer to the question you started with. They look identical, because they times are times identical. The same electromagnetic symmetry that makes electricity produce magnetism, and magnetism produce electricity makes the machine that exploits that symmetry work in both directions without changing a single component. But here's what that really means for your understanding of the physical world. In your normal experience of the world, motors and generators are different things. Different names, different purposes, different entries in the catalog. You buy a motor when you need something to spin. You buy a generator when you need electricity. They solve opposite problems. They belong in opposite categories. Every label we put on them reinforces this. The language itself insists they are separate. That intuition is completely wrong. Not slightly off, not missing nuance, wrong times at the most fundamental level possible. Here's the proof. And this isn't a thought experiment, this is something engineers do routinely, right now, in machines you have almost certainly ridden in. Take the electric motor in a hybrid car. Plug in current, it spins the wheels. Motor. Straightforward. Now take your foot off the accelerator, and let the car slow down. What happens to that same motor? It becomes a generator. No modification. No switching of components. No rewiring. The software simply reverses the energy flow. Instead of pushing current into the motor to create motion, it allows the motion of the slowing wheels to push current back out. The kinetic energy of the car, instead of becoming heat in the brake pads and vanishing forever, becomes electricity stored back in the battery. This is called regenerative braking. Every hybrid and electric vehicle on the road uses it. Every single one. The same physical object, same coils, same magnets, same shaft is a motor for part of your journey and a generator for another part. It switches between identities thousands of times in a single trip without changing its structure by a single atom. Think about what this means. Motor and generator are not names for two machines. They are names for 2 times directions times of operation of one machine. Read that again. Motor and generator are not names for 2 machines. They are names for 2 directions of operation of one machine. This isn't an engineering trick. This isn't clever design. This is the electromagnetic symmetry, expressing itself in physical hardware. The machine is identical in both directions, because the underlying physics is identical in both directions. Faraday's law works forwards and backwards. The Lorentz force works forwards and backwards. Maxwell's equations make no distinction between a motor and a generator, because at the level of physical law, there is no distinction. The universe does not recognize the categories we invented. This is not philosophy. This is measured, tested, deployed reality. It is running right now, in millions of vehicles, on roads around the world. And once you see it, once you truly see it, something else becomes visible. This reversibility isn't unique to motors and generators. Now here's what people miss when they learn just about motors and generators. This reversibility, this symmetry, isn't a quirk of electrical machines. It runs through everything. The same principle that lets a motor become a generator also explains why. A microphone and a speaker are the same device. Push sound waves into a microphone. The vibrating membrane moves a coil through a magnetic field, generating electrical signal. Push electrical signal into a speaker current and the coil creates magnetic force, moving the membrane, generating sound waves. Same machine. Opposite directions. A solar cell and an LED are the same device. Shine light onto a semiconductor, photons knock electrons loose, generating current. Push current through that semiconductor, electrons recombine and release photons, generating light. Same junction, opposite directions. A heat pump and a refrigerator are the same device. Run them one way, they move heat out of a cold space. Run them the other way, they move heat into a cold space. Same compressor, same coils, same refrigerant. Opposite directions. A piezoelectric crystal squeezed produces voltage. Voltage applied to that same crystal produces physical deformation. Same material. Opposite directions. What looks like many different technologies is actually one principle wearing different costumes. Energy doesn't care which direction it flows. The physical laws that govern conversion between forms work equally well forwards and backwards. Electricity to motion, motion to electricity. Sound to signal, signal to sound. Light to current, current to light. Pressure to voltage, voltage to pressure. The same force, the same symmetry, the same reversibility. This is not metaphor, this is not poetic language, this is the actual structure of physical law. And you're not separate from it. Right now, inside your ear, tiny hair cells are converting sound pressure into electrical nerve impulses. Same principle as a microphone. Right now, inside your muscles, chemical energy is converting into mechanical contraction. When you resist a force hold, something heavy, slow down from a run, your muscles can briefly act as generators, converting mechanical load back into metabolic signals. You are a reversible machine. Your body converts energy in multiple directions constantly. Tesla saw this symmetry in the 1880s, and it consumed him. He understood that once you see reversibility in one place, you see it everywhere. The universe doesn't build one-way devices. It builds symmetries. And there's a reason for that. So, why do electric motors and generators look identical? Because they are identical. Not similar, not related, not built from the same parts for convenience. The same machine, running in 2 directions, exploiting a symmetry so fundamental it was written into the universe before the first star ignited. Electricity creates magnetism. Magnetism creates electricity. Neither one is more fundamental. Neither one comes first. They are two faces of a single force, electromagnetism, and every device that converts between electrical and mechanical energy is just a physical expression of that unity. But understanding this isn't just about motors. It's about how physics actually works, how the universe actually works. For most of human history, we didn't know any of this. We saw motion as one thing and lightning as another. We had no idea they were connected. Then Faraday wrapped wire around iron and watched current appear from nowhere. Maxwell wrote 4 equations and unified electricity and magnetism forever. Tesla stood in a park in Budapest and saw a rotating magnetic field in his mind. 200 years. That's all it took to go from complete ignorance to building machines that convert energy with 98% efficiency in either direction. 200 years from what is lightning to regenerative braking and AC power grids and electric vehicles that capture their own kinetic energy. The fact that we can see this, can understand this, can write equations that predict the behavior of electromagnetic fields to 11 decimal places. That is not trivial. That is extraordinary. The universe is built on deep symmetries, and we found them. Hairless primates on a wet rock figured out the actual rules. Not myths, not stories. The real structure underneath everything. That's what motors and generators really are. Not two machines. One machine revealing that energy flows both ways, that the laws of physics don't care about direction, that the universe is more elegant than it has any right to be. Not comfort, not simplicity. Truth. If this journey into motors and generators changed how you see the machines around you, subscribe and share it with someone who still thinks these are two different inventions. They're not. They never were. What other everyday technologies do you think hide this kind of symmetry? What other opposites are secretly the same thing running in different directions? Tell me in the comments. I want to know what you see now.